Welcome to High Desert Highlights. I'm Steele Haugen. This is Peyton Thomas. And Peyton, we are in the second week of playoffs.
It's hard to believe.
The quarterfinals, they're on stage, and they were here tonight. They were in action, and they were fun.
They were fun, and it's hard to believe that they're already here, Steele. The semifinals and finals now played at neutral sites, so this was the last week of home games here for a couple of teams. And here in Central Oregon, we have 3 teams remaining that are competing for state titles. So let's start with 5A and undefeated Mountain View, the Cougars, taking on Lebanon at home. These two teams played earlier this year, Mountain View escaping with a 1-point win. Tonight we pick it up 7-6 second quarter. Cougars on the prowl with the lead, and they look to Jack Foley on the slant pattern. He's in easy. 14-6. Lebanon a chance to answer now late in the half. They move the ball all the way into the red zone, but that Cougar defense held up strong. This sack by Angel Valenzuela, it put the Warriors behind the chains and led to the stop to close out the first half. Out of the locker room, still 14-6. Cougars head back on offense. Carries by Valenzuela, and then Carpenter put Mountain View again in striking distance. They go right back to the well with Carpenter, and he caps off the drive.
Yep, if it's worked, keep going to it.
21-6, Warrior offense stalls, and the Cougars keeping the foot on the gas after grounding and pounding their way inside the 10. This time it's Valenzuela who takes the rock and celebrates at the end of that run into the fourth quarter at 28-6. Opportunities slim for Lebanon. They stay in it. The quarterback keeper here, they get the 2-point conversion, and suddenly only a 2-score game. Hope didn't last long, though, after chewing some clock. It's back to Valenzuela, who powers through multiple would-be tacklers. He keeps the feet inside the tape for the long touchdown run right there, Steele.
That is keeping your feet going, not stopping, and just pure determination.
And you could tell what this run meant to Valenzuela. This put Mountain View right in the driver's seat. They force another turnover on the next Lebanon possession. They coast from there. The Cougars a semi-finalist, a convincing 41-14 win. Following that big win, here's Mountain View head coach Brian Crum.
I think you saw the toughness of our team tonight. Took us a little while to get going, but the defense, they were outstanding. I don't know how many turnovers we had. I lost count, maybe 5. Just kept us in the game. We finally got the offense going, got the running game going, kind of pounded it a little bit. And, I told these guys all the time, they can do anything they want. And when they put their minds to it, we knew we had a semifinal bound team if we could do the right things, and we got that done tonight. Nice thing is you get to the semis, anything can happen.
In the semifinal next week, the Cougars will face 6th-seeded West Albany.
Let me ask you, was Brian Crum wearing shorts?
He was wearing shorts no matter how cold it was. It was in the 20s for most of the game tonight, and he had that exposed skin. I don't know how he does it.
Setting the tone. And you know who else had a touchdown? Jack Foley. We saw that earlier. He's been a huge part of their offense all season long. Now, Foley, he actually committed to Wake Forest. We reported this early in the year, but he actually changed his mind and now committed to Washington State. So I talked to him earlier about that commitment.
I think I might have committed on emotion a little bit. And so a big part of it was the distance. Staying on the West Coast means a lot. I got a lot of support here. But other than that, I think Washington State is on the rise of the football team. They've been ranked 2 consecutive years now, maybe even 3 if I can think about it. But they got a great team. They throw the ball just as much as Wake Forest, which is great for receivers like me, especially tall guys. So yeah.
And from Mountain View Cougar to Washington State
How about
Cougar.
that, the little
Look
Cougar
at that.
connection.
Stays a Cougar. He intends to graduate in January, actually, and just start training and working out with Washington State as soon as he can.
You're telling me he's graduating early? Overachiever? Yep. Shocked. The only other 5A team still in contention entering the night is Summit in the Storm on the road at top-seeded Silverton. They lost here at 35-12 to start the year here in the quarterfinals, looking to write a different story, but most of the first half didn't go their way. The Foxes showing off on both sides of the ball, proving they deserve that top seed in 5A. They went into the halftime locker room of this game up 29-0.
Wow, that is an impressive lead over a good Summit team who was making strides all year.
Yeah, Silverton would add another touchdown to begin the second half, then Summit finally showed signs of life. The Storm rattling off 23 unanswered points in that second half. So what could have been if the Storm didn't put themselves in too much of a deficit? Silverton moving on with the 36-23 win, and that takes us to tonight's 5A scoreboard. And Steele, between these 2 wins, a couple of 2-possession games, man, really a missed opportunity for Summit there, just falling behind to a high-powered Silverton team. They played well in the second half. You just can't fall that far behind.
And that's the game you think about where they lost by 1 to Mountain View. I mean, that's that conference leader, that bracket side of changes. It could be completely different.
Certainly.
All right, now we're heading to Culver High School. Coming into this game, both St. Paul and the Bulldogs were 10-0. But let's take one look at this bracket, actually. So on that side, Mountain View, West Albany. And here, Wilsonville, that was the championship game last year. They're taking on Silverton now.
Yeah, so another chance for that repeat of that championship game, Mountain View, Wilsonville. That's the 5A state bracket. But like you said, Steele, let's hop over to 2A, and we can go out to Culver.
All right, and it's the Bulldogs and St. Paul. They both were 10-0. It doesn't get any better than unbeaten teams. 9-man football action. This is St. Paul's Diego Medina, and he takes the handoff. It's a counter, breaks some tackles. Buckaroos, they strike first. Now this time, it's Clay Smith who takes the handoff for St. Paul. He finds the corner, and he just gets to the edge and has the speed and dives into the end zone. Now Culver, they need a stop. They need a big one, and that is exactly what they get. Fumble here, recovered by Cole Rahi. That was absolutely monstrous. The Bulldogs, they had momentum finally after a slow start. They're in scoring position, but intercepted. That's quarterback Houston Wittenberg who threw that interception. And that's really the point, Peyton, where this kind of just started to spiral out of control. You really felt the air get taken out of their sails there. They were down 43-0 at halftime and ended up losing 43-8, but that's still a spectacular season, 10-0 before losing.
Absolutely, don't take anything away from that Culver season, but that St. Paul team really a challenge that they hadn't seen at that level so far this year. So great season for the Bulldogs, but they crash out in the quarterfinals.
Yes, they do, and let's look at that bracket. Believe it or not, Peyton, St. Paul is a 1A school playing at the 2A level.
I didn't realize that.
Now they're 11-0.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, there's that updated 2A bracket. Now, there is an empty spot between Lost River and Heppner. That game happening tomorrow, but that St. Paul team, a great chance to win the 2A state title. Great year for Culver, but no cherry at the end of it. We're back with top plays right after the break. Welcome back to High Desert Highlights. Steele, we saw a lot of quarterfinal action out there between the 3 Central Oregon teams that were left at the start of the night, and it's time to look at a couple of those top plays.
That's right, and we're just going to head straight back to Culver High School. And Peyton, look where they're at right there. That was about their own 35-yard line. Houston Wittenberg, look at this punt. Picture perfect down at the 1-yard line. That's about a 65-yard punt before it finally gets down to the 1. That's like professional. You don't get any better than that.
Well, and Wittenberg's also the quarterback, so if you see him out in the formation, you're not going to put a return man back there. So if you can have your quarterback, a little pooch punt, 65 yards to flip the field and pin your opponent down on the 1, that's pretty good. For our final top play, we head out to Mountain View. And Steele, when you talk about running the football, you want that perfect combination of power and speed, and Angel Valenzuela flashed a whole chunk of both for this run here.
Yeah, he has the balance, you can tell, not just the speed too, but he stays on his feet and is just elusive, and then that speed is what takes him to the end zone.
That run helped secure Mountain View's quarterfinal win tonight. When Valenzuela put that in the end zone, it was in the 4th quarter. That extended their lead to 35 to 14. It finished 41-14, but really after that touchdown, no chance left for Lebanon. So with that, we head back to the semifinals. Steele, the Cougars were at this point last year. They, of course, getting all the way to the title game and then losing to Wilsonville in a thriller. And I think looking at that 5A bracket one more time, you have a couple of other really strong teams on the opposite side that await Mountain View. They look at West Albany next week.
And not to take anything away from West Albany, Mountain View still has to, of course, focus on that game. But you're right, you have Wilsonville, that's who Mountain View played in last year's state title game, and Silverton, who we just saw, the #1 team in the state. So those two sides of the bracket, those are some tough teams, and we got Mountain View with West Albany. It's just an exciting time right now.
It is. I'm not sure if we can get, there's one more look at that 5A bracket, and still as we kind of look back at the seeding and look at some of the scores, I really think that Summit got a tough draw here at 5-4. They got to host that first game against Willamette, but Silverton, Wilsonville, Churchill, all some of the best teams in 5A, and not to say that Mountain View had an easy path to the final, but if you look at the teams on the other side, there are a lot of comparable wins that Mountain View and some other Central Oregon teams had on that side of the bracket, including Lebanon tonight.
And if Mountain View does make it to the state title game, that's something we should look out for. I mean, between an experienced side of the bracket in some tough competition, between maybe games where it's not so close headed into the state title game.
Yeah, we'll see how Mountain View deal with West Albany tonight. Now, Bend had played West Albany earlier this season
and beat them.
And Mountain View also beat Bend, so we'll see how they do next week. Mountain View, a chance to reach the 5A state